Story 1. My Nissan Juke has a mystery voice that only ever says one thing: caution ferry, when we pass one of the island's 2 ferry terminals. The ferry may or may not be there, and it has never been known to cross the road without looking anyway. Story 2. My auto park is pretty useless. It has to be perfectly aligned, which takes nearly 5 minutes in and of itself. Then it takes another 5 minutes to actually park it. Super gimmicky. Story 3. This probably isn't a useless feature, but one I absolutely hate because of where I live. I had to get a newer car because my old one was breaking down every month. My new car has a lane departure warning and will beep or vibrate the wheel if you cross over the line. The problem is that my city has a lot of tight roadways and potholes. Going around someone opening their parked car door or swerving to avoid a huge pothole now has the added luxury of being yelled at by the car. Story 4. Reminder to keep my hands on the wheel when I have my hands on the wheel. My Hyundai will beep at me if I'm not moving the steering wheel a bit, so at 130 on the highway I have to move my steering wheel. Otherwise, it will disconnect the adaptive cruise control and brake because it thinks I've had a stroke. Story 5. My Audi SQ5 tells me my phone is still in the car through the internal speakers, which is useful if you're in the car and only works when you are. So if you're outside the vehicle and can't hear the speakers and have left your phone in there, it's pretty useless. Even then, it probably tries to send an alert to your phone to tell you you've left it behind. Great car, just really annoying with all its binging and bonging. It also slammed the brakes on at full speed at 50 miles per hour because it detected an imminent impact ahead. It was a bridge. I had to drive over the bridge because it's going over a river I need to pass to get home. We drive the same route to work every day, and it's decided to do it once. It needs to calm down. Story 6. Our BMW had a stereo that you could control by waving your hand around and moving your thumb in different directions. It worked half the time, and in the meantime you looked like a bad magician. All with controls right on the steering wheel that were 1,000 times more convenient. Story 7. BMW has a system where you can control the radio using hand gestures in front of it. A spinning motion is used to turn the volume up or down, for example. I struggle to imagine anyone who thinks this is easier than just turning the knob. Story 8. My neighbor's Honda minivan requires you to take your eyes off the road to look at a touchscreen and acknowledge that you will not take your eyes off the road. He says some lawyer was in charge of that, which is funny because he's a lawyer. Story 9, maybe not the most useless, but the most annoying is probably a tire pressure monitoring system that does not tell you which tire is low. My 2012 Nissan had one of them. Story 10. Why do I have to arm my cruise control like it's a missile before I can set it? The set button is what turns it on. So why doesn't that button work if I haven't hit another button first? Every car I've had has been like this, and I hate it more than I can put into words. Story 11. My car will automatically lower the fan speed on the air conditioning if you make a phone call. It sounds convenient, but when you live in a place with weather commonly in the 90s and 100s like I do, it is the worst. Story 12. Not useless, but an invasion of privacy. They are adding cameras to the cabin to watch you, so it might try to force you to not drive if sleepy or drunk. Sounds good, but is too much invasion of privacy. Story 13. I don't understand why more cars can't have ventilated seats. Almost all cars have heated seats. I live in the swamps of Mississippi. We have about 3 cold days a year. We have 300 days as hot as the surface of the sun. But unless you're buying luxury brands, it's heated-only seats. Story 14. Not sure this counts, but I've been upset about it for a while now. At some point, General Motors decided it would be wonderful to illuminate the reverse lights after the car or truck is turned off. Multiple times, I've waited for a General Motors vehicle to back out, only for the owner to come walking out from the driver's side. Who thought this was a good idea, and how did it get past any sort of safety board approval? Story 15. No place to mount phone. I cannot believe there is not some sort of universal mount to put your phone. Why are we still using air vents and adhesives on the dash? Story 16. Built-in cellular. No, I'm not going to spend more than my regular phone on a poor cellular plan that only works in my vehicle. Give me a built-in booster for when I'm on the edge of or out of service instead. Much more useful. Story 17. Touchscreens replacing buttons and knobs. No, voice control is not an acceptable solution. Automatic start/stop. These are annoying and barely save any fuel. We've had our current car for 4 months or so. It's driven every single day in the city. When it's auto-stopped, the screen displays the length of time it stopped and a counter for the amount of fuel saved. After 4 months of heavy driving, it saved less than 5 liters. Less than $10 in fuel savings, but it puts considerable extra strain on the starter motor and battery, reducing their lifespan or requiring the components to be overbuilt to compensate, which more than offsets the very slight environmental savings of very little less fuel used. Also, in actuality, it saved less fuel than it says because it does not account for the fuel needed to start the engine back up. On average, in a modern car, starting the engine uses about 7 seconds worth of fuel at idle. Most of the time it cuts off, I've already been sitting for a bit, and then it has to start up almost immediately as the light changes, so I've actually used more fuel than I would have if it were just running the whole time. And it means that the car is less responsive because it has to restart before I can move again. Stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Story 18. My old BMW had a car jack that could only work on BMWs. Rather than lifting from under the car, the arm of the car jack had to be stuck in a hole close to the car's bottom. There were holes by each wheel. The arm did not lock in place, making the car jack useless unless you had a hole to stick it in. Story 19. Any automatic door that closes only by a button control and subsequently operates with an annoyingly slow, cumbersome motor. If I want to slam my hatchback door shut like a caveman, it should be my God-given right. Story 20. The feature that turns your car off when you stop at a red light and then starts back up when you release the brake is annoying. It seems like it would wear out a starter in a vehicle quickly. Story 21. All the technology babysitting stuff like daytime running lights, autopilot, and lane keeping gives drivers even more chances to not pay attention to driving. I'm fine with a backup camera, though. Story 22. Here is an actual useless feature that was removed. BMW's caring car feature would play music, change the air conditioning and lights to energize or relax you. All I know is that a 2022 I drove has it, and my 2023 I bought does not have it. Story 23. The external temperature display on a Mitsubishi Outlander. Here's how it works. Once per minute, if the external temperature is lower than what is displayed, decrease the displayed temperature by 1. If the external temperature is higher than what is displayed, increase the temperature by 1. So you pull out of the garage, and it reports that it is 65 degrees, even though it is 0 degrees outside. It takes a full 65 minutes before the external temperature finally reports as 0, which is useless. Story 24. I hate lane assist. In theory, I get why it is there. However, it is not perfect at understanding the situation, and when it tries to correct, it nearly gets me in an accident. For example, if there is snow on the road, it sometimes thinks the snow is the line and tries to push me into the other lane. Story 25. I'm kind of poor, so I drive 20-year-old junk and haven't caught up with all the new technology yet. My sisters and I were leaving for a cross-country trip in a rental General Motors company Denali. I was thrilled to drive it. As I backed up to leave, they were all watching me. What's wrong? Am I making you nervous already? Then I backed up to my wall, and the seat shocked me. I guess it's an option for people who don't want to hear dings, but I must have jumped a foot and cursed like a sailor. I thought they would literally die laughing. I've had back surgery, and it genuinely hurt. I didn't figure out how to turn it off until the 3rd day of the trip, buried in a bunch of menus. If I was waiting to back out of a parking space and a car passed, it shocked me. If I was backing out and there was a parked car anywhere, it shocked me. I felt like the guy in the beginning of Ghostbusters who kept getting shocked by Bill Murray in a psych experiment because Bill was an ass. Anyway, the most hated car feature ever for me, and that's saying a lot. Whatever engineer thought that up was a pure masochist. Story 26. My Honda Civic will roll down all the windows completely if a button on the key fob is held down for over 3 seconds. That might be useful if you live somewhere it never rains, but if you live anywhere else and your office is within speaking distance of your car, it can really cause problems when your keys, just being in your pocket, roll down all your windows while it's pouring rain outside. Story 27. I would have to say the fake engine noise some cars pump through the speakers. Like, why would I want an artificial sound when I am driving? It feels so unnecessary, especially when you know it is not even real. Just let the car be quiet if it is supposed to be quiet. Story 28. My Subaru Forester has a thunderstorm alert that takes over the entire touchscreen, and you have to select an X in the corner, which rarely works on the first try, to turn it off. It's an interesting idea, but during a severe thunderstorm, it comes back every 2 minutes, which makes driving much more dangerous. Continuously reminds you that you are in a thunderstorm while you're driving through one. Story 29. That bullshit that when you stop too long, like at a red light or something, your car shuts off. They advertise it as a fuel saver, but in the long run, it messes up your transmission starting and stopping all the goddamn time. Stop putting this in cars. Story 30. Auto start stop on my Ford F-150 shuts the engine off when you stop at a stop sign or stoplight. It makes me just roll every stop sign. Long stoplights are okay, except that when the engine is off, the air conditioning won't blow cold and it's very hot where I live. Story 31. All the safety alerts if you have a wife in the passenger seat gasping like she's watching a movie in three-dimensional every time another car comes within a quarter mile. Sorry, she says she cannot help it, but that does not make it less annoying. Story 32. Anything that uses an application and doesn't have physical keys or buttons as a backup or failsafe option. Glenn Howerton talks about this issue with his Tesla on one of the Always Sunny podcast episodes. They even ended up basing an Always Sunny episode last season on his experience. Basically, his Tesla had to be started with an application. He parked in an underground garage and couldn't get cell service. He had trouble even getting into his car at first, but ultimately, once he got in, he wasn't able to start it and had difficulty even getting it towed. His entire ordeal could have been avoided had they just anticipated this type of problem happening and provided a key and traditional ignition option as a backup alternative to start the car in an emergency or situation like this. Story 33. You can make your Fiat 500 sound like another car's engine if it's licensed in the dashboard. I made my Fiat sound like a Dodge Ram. I'm not sure if this is still a feature. I rented one and it had this feature. Story 34. Radar-assisted cruise control, lane departure warning and correction, anti-trailer sway, seatbelt alarm, auto stop, especially after a certain number of minutes of idling in park. I'm fine with the features being there. Just let me disable them via a menu permanently if I don't want them. Story 35. I have a 2007 Honda Odyssey. Truly is peak Honda and the best vehicle ever sold. It has tons of convenient, useful features, but no unnecessary features or touchscreens. The only thing it won't do is get attention. Story 36. I have a 2012 Camry that has a radio with a code that needs to be entered anytime you change the battery. It is anti-theft. Yeah, like I remember that stupid code. And what's worse is that no one was stealing factory radios out of cars in 2012. Story 37. My high-tech Chevrolet goes from telling me how many miles are left to low when it gets below 40. This is really awesome when you have a wife who loves to hover around this low mark. So do I have 39 miles to go or 1? With 39, I can get to work and back today. With 1, I have to get gas now,